Together, we've committed nearly 700 tanks and thousands of armored vehicles, 1,000 artillery systems, more than 2 million rounds of artillery ammunition, more than 50 advanced launch rocket systems, anti-ship and air defense systems, all defend Ukraine, and that doesn't count the other $500 million we're announcing with you today and tomorrow. That's going to be coming your way.
President Joe Biden announced yet another round of military aid to Ukraine, this time to the tune of $500 million. Now, in the video that you just watched, he described all the different ways in which the United States has provided military weaponry to Ukraine in its effort to defend itself against Russia's invasion. Now, Biden, in this next clip, talks about what he plans to provide in the coming weeks. Let's watch.
Just today, that announcement includes artillery ammunition for HIMARS and howitzers, more javelins, anti-armor systems, air surveillance radars to help protect Ukrainian people from aerial bombardments. Later this week, we will announce additional sanctions against elites and companies that are trying to evade sanctions and backfill Russia's war machine.
The United States has already allocated a whopping $113 billion in military aid to Ukraine, and it doesn't appear that they intend to stop providing military aid. So that is the $113 billion is what was already provided. The $500 million is what was just announced by Biden during the Munich Security Conference. Anthony Blinken also has some pretty serious accusations against China. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we have the usual absurdities from all sides. Right-wingers now saying he went on President's Day, our President's Day. He spent it in a foreign country. Oh, shut up. No one cares. That's not the real criticism you want to do here. It's not like there isn't real criticism. We spent $113 billion. Are you sure that we should spend more? I'm not positive. We're going to get to our hypocrisy in regards to China in a second. And guys, the easy answer isn't, that's it, withdraw all support from Ukraine, or that's it, pour in another $113 billion to Ukraine. No, the question is what's in our best interest and what is going to bring this conflict to hopefully a peaceful resolution as quickly as possible. And the answers are almost never in the extremes.
Right, well, okay, so this story, as with any news story, is far more nuanced than what you're likely seeing in other news outlets, okay? First, let me just note, so that speech was given by President Joe Biden in Kyiv. He visited Ukraine for the first time, so that is the reason why Republicans are attacking him, arguing that he shouldn't be in Ukraine during President's Day, which is a ridiculous critique, to say the least. But over the weekend, the Munich Security Conference took place, and during the Munich Security Conference, we heard from a spokesperson from China's foreign ministry respond to accusations from the United States State Department in regard to China potentially offering lethal weapons to Russia in its invasion in Ukraine. Now, here is a statement from US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. He made the rounds on the Sunday morning news shows. Here's one example of that.
And you talk about this lethal aid. What evidence do you have of that? What makes you think they're about to send lethal aid to the Russians for the war in Ukraine?
Martha, what I can tell you is this. First of all, from day one, almost quite literally, because President Biden spoke to President Xi a couple of weeks into the Russian aggression back last March, and said to him that it would be a deep concern to us if China provided lethal support to Russia or helped in the systematic evasion of sanctions. And part of the reason for that conversation going back to last March was just a few weeks before, President Putin and President Xi had met, and they talked about a partnership with no limits. And we were very concerned that no limits might include significant support to Russia in its aggression. We've been watching this very, very closely. And for the most part, China has been engaged in providing rhetorical, political, diplomatic support to Russia. But we have information that gives us concern that they are considering providing lethal support to Russia.
There were no details about the alleged information that the US State Department has in regard to China. But make no mistake, I mean, he mentions the rhetorical support. And that's what certainly bothers the US State Department. China has not taken a stance against Russia. China is also looking to its own self-interest, as any country would, and they're considering basically their relationship with the West, particularly Germany and France. They want to rebuild their relationship with those two countries. And at the same time, they see Russia as an important ally to serve as a counterbalance to Western power, to the United States. So it's a far more complicated situation. I'm not gonna believe that China's thinking about providing lethal weapons to Russia unless there's actual evidence to back that up. The State Department loves to throw out some pretty antagonizing, statements against China, and I don't think that's smart.
Okay, so come on, let's talk about our hypocrisy. Don't be ridiculous. China is considering providing lethal aid. All of a sudden, aid is called lethal when referring to China. But when we sent $113 billion worth of missiles and ammunition and all sorts of weapons, that was not lethal aid. And by the way, the dutiful press corps, as always, bow their heads to the people in power and do their propaganda. Our aid is never called lethal aid. And remember, China hasn't sent a dime yet. We're not, even the warmongers basically the Biden administration have not said that China has sent a dime, but they're contemplating lethal aid. Who are you guys kidding, right? So is China gonna consider their own interest? What do you want them to do? Consider our interest first? Would we do that for them? Could you imagine if our leader was like, we should consider China first? Right? Of course China is gonna consider their interest first. Do they have interest in protecting their alliance with Russia? Of course they do. Now look, what Russia did was terrible. It invaded a sovereign country, and it is a war of aggression. It is 100% Russia's fault. So I'm not in favor of that war. I hate that war, and I hate that Russia started it. But am I a realist that I know that China is going to consider, hey, maybe if we're gonna do some action in Taiwan, we might wanna have Russia on our side. Hey, you know what? If the rest of the world is rejecting Russian oil and gas and we can get it for cheap, maybe we should consider Russian oil and gas. Of course they're gonna consider those things. So, and then if Blinken and corporate media, of course, going along with it, if they all come back with, well, did you know that Russia started that war of aggression? Yeah, I just told you that, right? Did you know we started the war of aggression in Iraq? And so would we have been like, can you believe countries sending lethal aid to America as they did the invasion of Iraq for no goddamn reason? So our hypocrisy is screaming so loud,
right?
As, by the way, not just politicians, but the media tries to protect the American people from seeing and hearing that obvious hypocrisy.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because during the Munich Security Conference, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry responded to the accusations coming from the US State Department. Asked about the accusations from Blinken and other US officials, Wang Wenbin, a spokesman for the foreign ministry, suggested that on the contrary, it was the United States that was implicated in bloodshed in Ukraine. He continues to say, quote, it's the US and not China that has been incessantly supplying weapons to the battlefield, and the US is not qualified to issue any orders to China.
Show me the lie.
Right, there is no lie. That statement is actually pretty accurate. In fact, I want to go to a quick video featuring the spokesperson for China's foreign ministry and some of the other statements that he issued.
It is the US, not China, that is providing a steady stream of weapons on the battlefield. The United States is in no position to make demands of China. We will never accept the US pointing fingers at Sino-Russian relations or even coercing us.
He also said, quote, Washington should stop shirking responsibility and disseminating fake news. China will continue firmly standing on the side of dialogue and on the side of peace. And I should note, look, there's something that's kind of been bothering me about the US strategy, right? Because while I've said a million times before, the United States made security guarantees to Ukraine after Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. That was what was negotiated with the United States back in the 1990s. Okay, that doesn't mean that there should be a blank military aid check provided to Ukraine, and there should be more of an effort to pursue peace negotiations. Now, I'm starting to think that the US is actually, their actions are counter to pressuring peace negotiations. I'll tell you why. In April of 2022, Lloyd Austin, who is the defense secretary, specifically said, candidly said, that the US wants the Russian military weakened from the Ukraine invasion. Okay, they want Russia to deplete all of their military capability and have a difficult time rebuilding their military capability once this war is over. Now, if you strike a peace deal early on in the war, is the US gonna get what it wants in regard to weakening Russia? No.
Yeah, there's more to that too. So guys, again, nuance here. A lot on the right and the left make it seem like Ukraine's the bad guys. Like, oh, did you hear about that Nazi division inside the Ukrainian? Oh, they're poor Russians are being attacked by the Ukrainian civilians. What the hell do you want them to do? They invaded their country. Of course, Ukraine's going to fight back. So my heart's with the Ukrainian people, and I'm glad that we helped them. Now, having said that, do we also have nefarious interests in America? Of course we do.
Definitely.
Of course. So guys, look, think about two things. Why don't we want peace negotiations, or why are we not pushing more aggressively in that direction? You could say, hey, Ukraine has a battlefield advantage and we want to press that. Maybe that's true, but that's up to the Ukrainians, right? But mainly for us, there's two things. One is we want Russia depleted because we realized after our debacle in Iraq and Afghanistan, hey, it turns out invading these countries is a real pain in the ass and siphons away a ton of money. Now we remember our elites, the people in power, did not mind that at all because the money that was drained away from American coffers went straight to their donors, the defense contractors, etc. So they love that we lost trillions of dollars there. But they also want Russia to lose trillions of dollars to even up the odds a little bit. But there's a second component. The longer the war goes on, the more Russia becomes alienated from the rest of the world, and that's why they're furious at China for not alienating Russia. Why do we care about that? Yeah, geopolitical interests, military interests, but more importantly, energy interests, okay? Russia used to supply energy to Germany and to a lot of Europe through the pipelines, Nord Stream 1, and they were gonna open up Nord Stream 2. There is excellent evidence to indicate that America bombed Nord Stream 1 in the middle of this war. And so that is, and by the way, that's a war crime. By the way, that's an attack against arguably not only Russia, but Germany, okay? And Germany was investigating it, and then all of a sudden decided to end their investigation instantly. Gee, I wonder why. If they'd found out it was Russia who did it, they would not have ended it. If they find out it's their ally that did it, they end it.
What is the US doing? They're playing with fire.
Of course they are, but why are they doing it, guys? Again, this is not a partisan issue. Republican, Democrat, in reality, it doesn't matter. The reason why the people in power do it is because they're funded by the energy companies. So those energy companies are going to make billions of dollars, maybe even trillions, because now Europe and other parts of the world are forced to buy from our energy companies. The money doesn't go to us. It doesn't go to the US taxpayers. It goes only to the executives and the shareholders of those companies, which then share a tiny percentage with the corrupt politicians who use it as campaign contributions. That's the #1 reason why we're dragging our feet and don't want to get to peace in Ukraine. Meanwhile, China figures, hey, listen, the quicker I wrap this thing up, their economic interests are better served. But I don't give a damn, I want peace. So I don't care about their economic interests, and I certainly don't care about ExxonMobil and the other guys' economic interests. Let's get to goddamn peace already. But our guys won't do it because they're warmongers. And the last thing is, our guys are also picking a fight with China.
Yes.
So not only are we saying, oh, I can't believe you would consider lethal aid as we pour lethal aid not only into Ukraine, but this is the most important part. We just did a multi-billion-dollar deal where we sent weapons to Taiwan, which would be characterized by us as lethal aid, okay? So China could turn around and go, oh my God, those guys, we might be in a war with them at some point, and that could kill Chinese civilians, all of your lethal aid. We're picking a fight and picking a fight. And why? Defense contractor industry, energy company industry, and by the way, bankers too that speculate on all of this, etc. Because our politicians don't work for us, they work for those donors. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.